morning, everyone. Welcome to CEDIA and welcome to Crestron's Digital Media Lab presentation. My name is John. Up to my left here is Ian. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to be taking you guys through this presentation, which focuses specifically on some of the challenges that are facing our industry as we transition from analog high-definition video distribution over to digital high-definition video distribution. Many of you probably don't go all the way up to 1080p when you do distribution in your customer's home because you realize you have to go with a digital infrastructure. Well, going back to the days of analog and using 720p and 480i, unfortunately those days are extremely limited. For example, about a year ago, a couple weeks before coming to the show, some of our partners from Europe started getting some nasty phone calls. Well, come to find out that Sky HD, which holds 95% of the market share when it comes to HD television distribution over in the UK, literally flipped a switch and set up their set-top boxes so that if you didn't have HDMI distribution, the maximum resolution you get on their component outputs was 576i, which is PAL, equivalent to our standard definition NTSC. More recently in this country, about 6 months ago, DirecTV turned on content protection on their HDMI outputs and simultaneously stopped outputting any video on their analog outputs on their HD on-demand channels. So if you have a customer that wants HD on demand, they have to have content protection or they just won't get a picture. And probably the one that's the most drastic is the new Blu-ray licensing agreement. This agreement has to be abided by all manufacturers of Blu-ray players and content providers, which changed about a week before Infocom. This change in the licensing agreement officially put in a sunset date for analog HD outputs on Blu-ray. That date, by the way, is December 31st, 2010. So you've got about 14 months until you will no longer be able to purchase a Blu-ray player that outputs any high-definition video at all over analog outputs. The maximum you'll get on that component is going to be 480i. Simultaneously, they're going to be activating the image constraint token on all the Blu-ray disc contents. When you go out and you buy a new disc and put it in an old player, you'll get the same thing. Max video resolution on component will be 480i. If you want any higher than that, you have to go to a digital infrastructure like HDMI with content protection. So now that we know that we have to go over to a digital infrastructure, how do we do so without negatively impacting the user experience? Many people have heard or experienced some of the problems of doing this, and that's what this lab is really about, to help educate you on some of these problems and then show you Crestron solutions to those problems so that you can ensure that you have a successful installation. So for the first example, we're going to keep things extremely basic. We've got an Apple TV and a Blu-ray player up here in this upper left-hand corner as you guys look at the stage. And they're connected directly into the side HDMI inputs of this Sony display. Now we set it up this way so that you guys after the presentation are over can actually go ahead and take a look at the side and know that this is how these things are actually connected. You know, there's no smoke and mirrors going on. So let's imagine for a moment that I'm your customer and I just purchased a $15,000 or a $20,000 home theater from you. And I'm sitting with my wife enjoying my brand new system. And I say, honey, I want to check and see if that program I downloaded on my Apple TV is ready to be watched yet. So I'm just going to jump over to the movie. No, don't worry about pausing it. This will just take but a moment. Of course, I had a professional install this system. So this will, well, maybe I pressed the wrong button. Or, I don't know, maybe that professional installation company ripped me off. Oh, there's video. Oh, no, I guess I don't have video yet. So wait a little bit longer. And I'll wait a little bit longer. Then I'll wait some more. Now I have video. It takes 19 seconds to make that switch from that Blu-ray player over to that Apple TV. We find this is pretty typical. Usually we find sources take between 10 and 20 seconds to make that switch and connect it directly up to the source. I don't know about your customers, but will they wait 19 seconds before they start panicking and just pushing random buttons? I know my customer, a la my wife, waits about 3 seconds before she starts screaming at the top of her lungs, "There's a bug!" Right? But of course we wouldn't do this, right? We're professionals. Right? That's why we're all here at CEDIA to learn about these things, and we wouldn't connect devices directly to a display. That's so 1980s, right? We're professionals. We use professional HDMI switches. So in this next example we have, so we've got a couple Blu-ray players and Apple TV, and we'll have a couple displays into a distributed professional HDMI switch. In fact, this switch is so professional that it has an RS-232 port, so we can integrate it into some type of control solution. So again, let's imagine that we're in the theater, okay, and my wife and I are watching, I don't know, we'll see the 13th episode in a row of Sex and the City, and by God, I just can't take any more Samantha, so I've got to escape and go to another zone where I'll watch, I don't know, a Blu-ray movie. Okay. So After a half an hour or so, I decide I want to check and see if it's safe to go back into my brand new theater. So I'm going to switch over to that same Blu-ray player, that's connected through that non-Crestron professional HDMI switch. Ian, why don't you go ahead and press that button and switch that Apple TV up to this theater, or I'm sorry, this kitchen display. Did you press the wrong button? Because we lost. No, you didn't. You didn't. Well, it wasn't you. Well, that's odd. So we try and switch the same source we're watching in the theater up into the kitchen, and I lose video. Oh, there's video. Oh, no, not yet. Okay, we'll just wait a little longer, and now I have video again. Now, to understand what happened there, you have to understand how HDCP content protection actually works. You see, with HDCP, it's the job of the source to maintain the integrity of the content. So when the source saw that it was routed to a second display, it shut off its output, waited till it authenticated that new display, and then turned its output back on. That's why when we routed that one source to a second monitor, we lost it in both. Now, obviously, this isn't acceptable for our customers. And I know we have some tremendous salespeople in the industry, and maybe, just maybe, you can convince your customer that waiting up to 20 seconds between switching sources is a good thing. But I highly doubt that you're going to be able to convince them that losing video at random times in their system when somebody else, somewhere else in the home, is using the system, I don't think you're going to be able to sell that. But obviously I'm building up to something here. I wouldn't show you all of these problems if we didn't have the solutions. And the solution comes with Crestron's exclusive Quick Switch HD technology that is available in all of Crestron's digital video switching products. So this time we're going to use one Crestron switch. We'll do the same type of thing. We have another Apple TV we'll route to this center monitor, and then we've got a Blu-ray player we'll route up to this middle monitor. And Ian, why don't you go ahead and route that Apple TV up to this middle monitor, and you notice we don't lose it here. Okay? We never lost picture down in that theater, and it took much less time to route that same source up to that other zone. Now, why is that? Well, Crestron does things a little bit differently than all of our competitors. Specifically, we pre-authenticate all of the keys, effectively telling all of the sources they're talking to all of the displays all of the time. This prevents them from ever turning off, and it also makes your switching much, much faster. What you'll usually experience out in the field is somewhere between 2 to 3 seconds depending on the individual displays, but it's consistent no matter which source you go to, unlike our competitor solution, which will take 10 to 20 seconds depending on the source and what mood the source happens to be in at that time. So 2 seconds or 20 seconds? Crestron, everybody else.